The planet was already dying. Across the sky, enemy ships descended by the hundreds. Below them, entire cities were burning. The last defenders were finished. No ships. No reinforcements. No hope. The Galactic Council had abandoned them. Their final transmission had been brutally simple. No reinforcements are coming. Then the sky changed. At first he thought the enemy had sent another fleet. He was wrong. Thousands of enormous vessels emerged from the darkness beyond the planet. No identification. No communication. He stared at the tactical screen. Who are they? The system searched. No match. It searched again. Still nothing. Then the screen went black. One word appeared. Earth. Another word appeared beneath it. Humanity. The command room fell completely silent. Someone whispered, "But we abandoned them." A transmission suddenly filled every speaker. A human voice. Calm, cold, unshaken. "We know." The council leader stepped toward the screen. "Then why are you here?" For several seconds there was only static. Then the human commander answered, "Because 60 years ago you made a choice." A pause, and humanity never forgot it. He looked back toward the battlefield. The enemy fleet was retreating. Not regrouping. Not repositioning. Retreating. Then he saw where the human weapons were pointing. They weren't targeting the enemy. Across the fleet, thousands of human weapons turned toward the Galactic Council. The same council that had abandoned humanity 60 years earlier. 60 years earlier, humanity had been watching the stars for less than a decade when the first message arrived. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. For the first time in human history, someone out there had answered. The message came from the Galactic Council, and Earth believed the galaxy had finally opened its doors. The Council offered humanity membership, protection, trade, knowledge, a place among civilizations that had existed long before humanity had learned to leave its own planet. Nobody asked the obvious question. Why were they so eager to welcome us? 3 months later, the first Council delegation arrived above Earth. They didn't attack. They didn't demand anything. They simply waited. Humanity met its first alien representatives beneath the lights of 1 billion cameras. There were handshakes, treaties, promises, and for the next few years, humanity believed the galaxy had welcomed them. Trade flourished. New medicines reached Earth. New worlds appeared on human star charts. Children grew up believing humanity's age of isolation was over. Then the Council began changing. Quietly, questions about unexplored regions stopped receiving answers. Human ships were denied access to certain systems. Council representatives began leaving meetings whenever humans mentioned the outer territories. And every time Earth asked why, the answer was the same. You aren't ready. Then one night, the answer changed. At 0317 UTC, every Council communication channel on Earth activated. There was no greeting, no explanation. Just 3 words. "Leave your planet." The message repeated. Again and again. Earth demanded an explanation. For 6 hours, the Council remained silent. Then a second transmission arrived. This time it contained an image. A region of space beyond the edge of known Council territory. Completely black. No stars. No planets. No signals. Then another image appeared. A civilization had once existed there. Millions of people. Hundreds of worlds. Gone. Another image. Gone. Another. Gone. Finally, the Council gave humanity a name. The Veil. They didn't know where it came from. They didn't know what it wanted. They only knew what happened when it appeared. Civilizations disappeared, and now, it was moving toward Earth. The Council promised an evacuation. Humanity believed them. Why wouldn't they? For years, the Council had promised that humanity would never face the galaxy alone. Council ships moved toward Earth. Evacuation corridors opened. Human governments began preparing their populations. Families packed what they could carry. But then the evacuation estimates arrived. 8 billion people. Not enough ships. Not enough time. And something became painfully clear. The Council wasn't trying to save everyone. They were choosing who would leave. President Elena Ward confronted the Council directly. "You promised to protect us." The alien representative said nothing. "You promised humanity would never face the galaxy alone." Still nothing. Ward stepped closer to the screen. "Then tell me what you're not telling us." The representative finally answered. Earth has been classified as non-essential. The room went silent. Ward stared at the words, then asked, "Non-essential to whom?" The transmission ended. No explanation. No apology. Just silence. Outside, the evacuation continued. But now everyone understood the truth. The Council wasn't coming to save Earth. It was deciding who was worth saving, and most of humanity wasn't on that list. That night, President Ward received one final transmission. It wasn't from the Council. It came from somewhere beyond the known network. Only one sentence appeared. "When they leave you behind, do not follow them." Ward stared at it. Then another line appeared. "Build." She didn't understand. Not yet. Before she could respond, the message disappeared. 3 hours later, the evacuation fleet filled Earth's sky. Thousands of ships. Thousands of lights. For one final moment, humanity looked upward and believed they had come to save them. Then the first evacuation ships departed, not carrying everyone. Not even close. Only the people the Council had decided were worth saving. The rest were left behind, and nobody on Earth fired a weapon. Nobody begged them to stay. They simply watched the fleet disappear into the darkness. Then the last Council transmission arrived. "Good luck, humanity." The transmission ended. Minutes later, the first signs of the veil appeared beyond the moon. A darkness unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It wasn't exploding toward Earth. It wasn't attacking. It was simply moving, slowly, silently, toward them. Across Earth, people looked into the sky, and for the first time humanity understood. There would be no rescue, no council, no second chance. So humanity did the only thing the galaxy had never expected. It stopped asking for one. Deep beneath the surface, emergency doors began opening. Engineers entered facilities that did not exist on any public map. Scientists brought machines out of storage. Factories changed production lines overnight, and ordinary people were given a single instruction: build. Nobody outside those facilities knew what they were making. The Council believed humanity was desperate. The galaxy believed Earth was doomed. Both were wrong, because the thing humanity began building that night would take 60 years to complete. And when the galaxy finally discovered what it was, the Council would remember the day it abandoned Earth. For years, humanity built in silence. Deep beneath Earth's surface, construction continued in secret. But the largest part of the project was somewhere else. Beneath the moon. A facility so vast that no government had ever publicly acknowledged its existence. Nobody knew exactly what they were building. Not even President Ward. They only knew the instructions had never changed. Build. And so they did. Year after year, until one morning, the moon woke up. Every sensor in the hidden facility activated at once. Lights came on. Machines powered themselves. And somewhere beneath kilometers of lunar rock, something moved. Engineers rushed into the control chamber. The structure beneath the moon was changing. Massive sections rotated. Hidden mechanisms unfolded. Black surfaces lit up with symbols nobody had programmed. The chief engineer stared at the display. "We didn't turn it on." Nobody answered. Then every screen in the room went black. A message appeared. "You think you know." The engineer stepped closer. "What does that mean?" The screen changed. A map appeared. Earth, the moon, and beyond them, the veil. A line connected the lunar structure directly to the darkness surrounding the solar system. The engineer's voice dropped. "It knows where the veil is." Then another message appeared. Not to escape. A pause. To cross. Nobody moved. For 60 years, humanity had believed the veil was something to survive. Now they realized the thing they had been building was designed for something far more dangerous. Going through it, they didn't send a fleet. They sent a probe. Small, unarmed, automated. Its mission was simple. Cross the veil. Transmit. Return. The probe disappeared into the darkness. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then its signal returned. The control room erupted. They had done it. Something had crossed the veil. Then the transmission changed. The signal was no longer coming from the probe. It was coming from somewhere else. Static filled the speakers. Then a voice emerged. Distorted. Ancient. Almost human. 6 words. "Do not let them see you." The signal vanished. The probe never returned. Nobody celebrated, because something on the other side had noticed them. The next 3 probes disappeared before they could return. Then the fourth came back. Its cameras showed nothing at first. Empty space, blackness. Then something moved in the distance. Something enormous. Far too large to identify. The feed suddenly died. President Ward ordered the project stopped. The chief engineer refused. "We can't stop now." Ward stared at him. "We just lost 4 probes." He shook his head. "No. What do you mean?" He pointed toward the moon. "The structure didn't lose anything." Then, it learned. Humanity thought it was hiding the project. It wasn't. The Council had been watching, and now they had seen the moon. First came unusual energy readings, then missing satellites, then unexplained activity on the lunar surface. The Council sent a warning. Earth ignored it. They sent another. Earth ignored that too. Finally, every surviving human communication channel activated. A Council representative appeared on the screen. For the first time, his voice wasn't arrogant. It was afraid. "Shut it down." President Ward stared at him. "Why? You don't understand what you're doing. You left us. We were trying to protect you. You classified us as non-essential." The representative looked away. "We were wrong." Ward paused, then asked the question that had haunted humanity for 60 years. "What is beyond the veil?" The representative didn't answer. "Answer me." Still nothing. Then he whispered, "That is the wrong question." Ward froze. "Then what's the right one?" The alien looked directly into the camera. For several seconds he said nothing. Then, "Who built it?" The transmission died. For the first time, humanity understood that the Council wasn't afraid of the veil itself. They were afraid of its origin. So humanity searched everything the Council had ever left behind. Most of the records were gone. Some had been deliberately destroyed. But one archive survived. Buried inside an ancient Council database, it contained a single image. A civilization beneath a black sky. Millions of lights covered its worlds. Then they disappeared. One world, then another, until nothing remained. The final record contained only one sentence. They came through. Below it was another. No one came back. The scientists stared at the screen. Then one scientist noticed something. "President," Ward turned.
"What?"
He pointed at the archive. "This record," he swallowed. "It's older than the Council." Nobody spoke. The room suddenly felt much colder. Then the archive revealed something else. A symbol. The exact same symbol now appearing across the structure beneath the moon. Ward stared at it. Humanity had built the structure. But humanity had never designed it. That night, Ward entered the lunar facility alone. After decades of construction, the structure was finally nearing completion. For the first time, she could see its full shape. It wasn't a fortress. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a ship. It was a doorway, and it was pointed directly toward the veil. Ward stepped closer. The structure activated. Every light in the chamber disappeared. Then a star map appeared across its surface. Not the known galaxy. Not Council territory. Something far beyond both. A location appeared at the center. The veil. Then another symbol appeared beside it. Creators active. Ward stopped. The star map disappeared. Only one message remained. They built the veil. Ward stared at the words. And suddenly, humanity's greatest question wasn't how to survive the veil. It was something much worse. Why had someone built it? And if its creators were still active, why had they been waiting for humanity? The words remained on the screen. They built the veil. For several seconds, nobody in the chamber moved. President Ward looked at the image of the moon, then at the black region beyond it. "What is the veil?" The scientist beside her swallowed. "We thought it was the threat." Ward turned toward him. "You're saying it isn't?" He shook his head. "We don't know. But we know one thing now." He enlarged the recovered map. The darkness surrounding the galaxy wasn't random. It formed a boundary. A wall around something. Ward stared at it. "So the veil isn't the danger?" "No." The scientist pointed toward the edge of the map. "It's hiding something." For 60 years, humanity had believed the veil was coming for Earth. But the new data suggested something different. It wasn't hunting them. It was keeping something away, or keeping something inside. The moon structure had already begun mapping the region beyond it. Not with human star charts, with something older. Something the scientists didn't understand. Every time the structure finished scanning another section of space, the same pattern appeared. Empty systems, dead worlds, abandoned stations, civilizations that had vanished without a trace. Then, one system appeared differently. It wasn't dead. It was transmitting. The signal was weak, so weak that the human instruments almost missed it. One pulse, then silence. Another pulse, then silence again. The scientists stared at the display. It's repeating. Ward stepped closer. What does it say? We don't know. Translate it. We can't. Then show me the pattern. The scientist brought the signal onto the main screen. 3 pulses, 3 more. Then 1. The moon structure reacted. Every light inside the chamber went dark, and a new image appeared. A planet. Blue. Covered in clouds and surrounded by thousands of artificial structures. Ward stared at it. Is that a human colony? No. How do you know? The scientist zoomed in. Because the structures weren't human. They were enormous, ancient, and still active. Then the transmission changed. The signal wasn't coming from the planet. It was coming from inside the veil. Ward's expression hardened. Someone is alive in there. Nobody answered. Because another question had already appeared on the screen. A question the structure had generated by itself. Why did you cross? Ward froze. We didn't. The scientist looked at her. We haven't crossed anything. The structure responded. You did. The room erupted with confusion. They checked every human vessel. Every probe. Every transmission. Nothing had crossed the veil. Then the moon structure displayed an image of Earth. Not Earth today. Earth from 60 years earlier. The night the Council abandoned humanity. The night the first signs of the veil appeared beyond the moon. And beneath the image, a single line. They were watching. Ward stared at it. Who? The structure gave no answer. Instead, the map changed. The veil began moving. Not toward Earth. Away from it. For the first time in recorded history, the boundary was retreating. The scientists watched in disbelief. One of them whispered. It reacted to something. Ward looked at the darkness pulling away from the galaxy. What did it see? Nobody knew. Then the stars beyond the veil began disappearing. Not 1, not 10, thousands. As if something enormous was moving between them. Something too large to be a ship. Too deliberate to be a natural phenomenon. The moon structure focused every sensor toward the darkness. And for the first time, it stopped building. It stopped scanning. It stopped transmitting. It simply watched. Far beyond the known edge of space, something had noticed Earth. Something that had been silent for thousands of years. Something the Council had never been able to reach. Something the veil had been hiding. A final signal reached the moon. Only 4 words. They know you exist. Ward stared at the message. Who? The answer never came. Because beyond the retreating veil, something enormous finally turned toward Earth. And for the first time in 60 years, the thing humanity had been building stopped. Not because it was finished. Because something had finally noticed it. The structure stopped. Not the machines around it. Not the factories beneath the moon. The structure itself. For 60 years it had continued without hesitation. Building. Scanning. Learning. Now, nothing. President Elena Ward stood inside the command chamber, staring at the dead tactical display.
What happened?
No engineer answered. Then the lights came back. Every screen in the room changed at once. Not to a blueprint. Not to a warning. To a map. The veil. But something was different. For the first time, the darkness was moving. Away from the moon. Ward stepped closer. Is it retreating? The chief engineer shook his head. No. Then what is it doing? He enlarged the image. The veil wasn't moving randomly. It was opening a path. A narrow corridor through the darkness. Ward stared at it. Where does that lead? The engineer hesitated. We don't know. Then another signal appeared. Not from the moon. Not from Earth. From somewhere beyond the veil. One pulse. Then another. Then thousands more. The room went silent. Across the map, tiny points of light began appearing beyond the darkness. 1, 10, 100. Then millions. Ward whispered. What am I looking at? The engineer couldn't answer. Because none of those lights were stars. They were worlds. Civilizations. alive, hidden, watching. Ward turned toward the council representative on the emergency channel. You knew. The alien said nothing. You knew there were civilizations beyond the veil. Still nothing. Ward's voice hardened. How long? The representative finally looked at her. Longer than your species has existed. The room froze. Ward stared at him. Then why did you tell us they were gone? The representative lowered his eyes. Because we needed you to believe they were. Why? Silence. Then he said, because the moment humanity discovered what was beyond that boundary. He stopped. They would know humanity had found it. Ward stepped closer to the screen.
What?
The representative looked directly at her. They would know. The millions of lights beyond the veil began moving. Not toward the council. Not toward the moon. Toward Earth. One by one more worlds lit up. Then more. Until the darkness beyond the veil looked like an entire galaxy waking up. Ward stared at the impossible display. What are they? The representative's voice dropped to a whisper. We don't know what they are anymore. Ward turned. Anymore? He said nothing. She understood. You've met them. The representative finally nodded. Once. When? Before the council existed. A chill moved through the chamber. Ward looked back at the millions of lights. Then why hide them? The representative answered, because we learned what happens when they notice a civilization. Ward waited. What happens? The alien looked directly into the camera. They come closer. The screen flickered. Every light beyond the veil suddenly stopped. Then a single message appeared. Not in the council's language. Not in humanity's. But the structure translated it instantly. 3 words. Earth confirmed. Nobody moved. Ward stared at the message. Then another line appeared. They know you exist. The council representative closed his eyes. Ward turned toward him. What did you do to them? The representative looked toward the darkness. Nothing. That was the problem. Ward's expression hardened. Then why did you abandon us? He looked at her. Because we were afraid of what would happen if you reached them. Ward stepped closer. You abandoned 8 billion people because you were afraid? No. The representative looked toward the millions of lights beyond the veil. We abandoned you because you were getting close. Close to what? He didn't answer. The structure suddenly projected a final image. A door. Not opening. Not closing. Waiting. The representative stared at it in horror. Then whispered, that door was never supposed to open for you. Ward looked at him. Why? The transmission cut. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then the structure changed the image. The door disappeared. A single sentence remained. Access requested. Ward stared at the screen. The chief engineer whispered, it's asking us to open it. Ward looked toward the darkness beyond the moon. No. She shook her head. Something is asking us to. And whatever is on the other side. The millions of lights beyond the veil moved again. Closer, closer, closer. Ward's voice fell to a whisper. Already knows we're listening. For 3 minutes after the transmission ended, nobody moved. The words remained on the screen. Access requested. Then the chief engineer spoke. President, Ward didn't look away. Say it. We didn't send that request. I know. The engineer swallowed. The structure did. Ward finally turned toward him. Can it open the door? No. Not by itself. Ward looked back at the screen. Then what does it need? The engineer hesitated. Us. The lights across the command chamber suddenly went dark. Every display shut down, except one. A single line appeared. Choose. Ward stared at it. Choose what? Nothing. Then another line appeared. Open. The engineer stepped back. Don't. Ward looked at him. Why? Because we don't know what's on the other side. Ward's eyes hardened. Neither did the council. No. He pointed toward the dead screens. But they knew enough to be terrified. Across the galaxy, emergency channels began activating. Not public channels. Not military channels. The oldest channels the council possessed. Messages traveled between civilizations that had spent centuries refusing to speak to one another. The subject was always the same. Earth. One representative demanded immediate containment. Another demanded that all communication with humanity be terminated. A third said something that silenced the room. They're not asking what we know. The others looked at him. They're asking what humanity knows. No one answered. Then the oldest representative stood. We should have destroyed the project when we had the chance. Silence. A younger delegate stared at him. You knew? The old representative looked toward the window. We knew what happened the last time someone reached the door. And? His expression changed. They didn't come back. Back on Earth, Ward refused to open it. Not yet. Instead, she ordered the structure disconnected from every human system. The engineers obeyed. One by one, the connections disappeared. The moon went dark. The command room exhaled. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the structure spoke. Not through the speakers, through every screen at once. You are afraid? Ward stared at the message. No. Another line appeared. You should be, the engineer whispered. President. A new image appeared. It showed Earth, then the moon, then the veil, then something beyond it. Not a ship, not a planet, a structure. Immense, so large that the stars disappeared behind it. Ward stepped closer. What is that? The system began translating. Not words, memories. Images appeared across the chamber. A civilization standing before the same door. Then another, each one older than the last. Each one reaching the boundary. Each one opening it, and each time, the same result. Silence. The images stopped. Ward stared at the screen. They all disappeared. The engineer nodded. That's what the council told us. Ward looked at him. No. She pointed toward the final image. They didn't disappear. The engineer stared at the image. Then where are they? Ward looked at the thousands of lights beyond the door. Waiting. The council transmission returned. The representative appeared visibly shaken. Close the structure. Ward didn't answer. President Ward. You knew they survived. We knew some of them might have. That's not what your record said. Our records were designed to keep civilizations away from the boundary. Why? The representative looked at her. Because every civilization that reached it asked the same question. Ward waited. What question? His answer came quietly. What is on the other side? Ward looked at the structure. And you never found out? We did. The room went silent. Ward's voice lowered. Then tell me. The representative stared at her. No. Why? Because once you know. He stopped. Ward stepped toward the screen. Once I know what? The representative looked toward something outside his frame. Fear crossed his face. Then, the transmission ended. Ward froze. Reconnect. The engineer tried. Nothing. Again. Still nothing. Then every emergency channel across Earth activated simultaneously. Not from the council. From beyond the veil. A voice emerged. Not alien. Not human. Something older. Something calm. It spoke only once. You finally came back. Ward's face went pale. The engineer looked at her. Back? The voice continued. We have been waiting. The screen filled with static. Then a final image appeared. Not of the veil. Not of the moon. Not of Earth. A human silhouette stood on the other side of the door. Ward stopped breathing. The figure was standing exactly where no human being should have been able to stand. Then it raised its head. The face remained hidden, but the voice was unmistakably human. You were never abandoned. A pause. You were returned. Ward stared through the glass. The figure remained beyond the boundary. Still. Silent. Waiting. She finally spoke. What does returned mean? The figure didn't answer. Instead, the stars beyond the veil began to move. One light. Then another. Then thousands. The engineer stared at the display. President.
What?
They're moving. Toward us? He shook his head. No. They're watching. Ward looked back at the figure. For humanity? The answer came quietly. For the truth. The chamber changed. Images appeared across every screen. Ancient worlds. Ancient cities. Ancient ships. And then, Earth. But not the Earth Ward knew. A different Earth. Older than every human record. Ward stepped closer. That can't be us. It is. Her eyes remained fixed on the image.
What happened?
The figure looked toward the veil. Your ancestors discovered what was beyond it. The screens changed. A darkness appeared between the stars, not the veil. Something beyond it, something that had erased entire civilizations. They couldn't destroy it, the figure continued. So they built a boundary. Ward whispered. The veil. Yes. And humanity built it? Humanity helped build it. Ward looked at the ancient structure. Then why don't we remember any of this? The figure was silent. Then, because remembering would have brought you back too soon. Another image appeared. Ancient humans boarding ships, leaving Earth, crossing beyond the known galaxy, then returning, but only a fraction of them. Ward's face went pale. We came back. No. The figure looked directly at her. You were returned. By whom? The figure didn't answer. Ward looked toward the thousands of lights beyond the veil, then back at the silhouette. Who are you? For the first time, the figure stepped fully into the light. The face remained hidden, but the voice was unmistakably human. The last ones who remembered. Ward stared. Remembered what? That humanity was never meant to disappear. The room fell silent. Then the figure continued. We were the ones who sent you back. Ward finally understood. Not abandoned, not forgotten, returned, but one question remained. Why? The figure looked toward Earth. Because your ancestors chose survival over memory. And we kept their promise. Ward turned toward the council representative. You knew. He said nothing. You knew what humanity was. Silence. You knew what was buried beneath the moon. Finally, the representative answered. We knew enough. Ward's expression hardened. And you still welcomed us into the galaxy. We had to know whether the memory was gone. You used us. No. His eyes moved toward the veil. We were afraid of what would happen if you remembered. Ward stared at him. So you gave us a choice? He shook his head. We gave you distance. You gave us abandonment. We gave you time. Ward's voice became colder. You erased our history. We hid it. You cut us off from the galaxy. We protected the galaxy. You watched billions of people die. The representative said nothing. And that silence was the answer. Ward finally understood. The council hadn't abandoned Earth because humanity was weak. It had abandoned Earth because humanity was remembering. And the council was terrified of what would happen when it remembered everything. Ward looked toward the figure. What happens now? The answer was simple. Now humanity remembers. Across the solar system, dormant systems awakened. Not weapons, not armies. Records, archives, communications. The history humanity had lost began returning. Forgotten discoveries, erased civilizations, ancient agreements, names that had disappeared from human history. Everything the council had buried began coming back. And then, something unexpected happened. The civilizations beyond the veil began moving. One ship turned toward Earth, then another, then dozens, then thousands. They weren't attacking. They weren't surrendering. They were coming closer. The council watched in silence. Ward looked at the display. Why are they coming? The figure answered, because they remember too. One by one, ancient civilizations began transmitting. Not threats, not demands. Names, histories, stories of worlds the council had ordered forgotten. For centuries, the council had controlled what the galaxy remembered. Now the truth was spreading faster than it could be erased. The council representative stared at the screens. You don't understand what you're doing. Ward turned toward him. No. She looked at the thousands of civilizations beyond the veil. I finally understand what you did. What do you want? Ward didn't answer immediately. Then, the truth. The representative stared at her. That is all? No. Ward looked toward Earth. You took our history. A pause. You took our place among the stars. Another. You decided humanity wasn't worth saving. She turned back toward him. So no, you don't owe us 60 years. The chamber went silent. You owe us everything you made us forget. The words crossed every open channel. The council could have denied it. It could have threatened Earth. It could have ordered the fleets to fire. Instead, one council ship lowered its weapons. Then another, then another. Across the galaxy, governments began opening their archives. The truth came out. The erased civilizations, the forbidden discoveries, the real history of the veil. And humanity's place within it. For 60 years, the galaxy had believed Earth was abandoned because humanity was insignificant. Now they understood the truth. Earth had been hidden because humanity mattered, far more than the Council wanted anyone to know. Ward looked toward the figure. "Is this why you returned us?" The figure shook its head. "No." "Then why?" "To give you the choice your ancestors never had." Ward looked at the opening beyond the veil. The ancient boundary was beginning to part. Not like a weapon, like a door. The civilizations beyond it waited. Earth waited. The Council waited. For the first time in human history, nobody was deciding humanity's future for it. Ward understood the debt now. It was never about revenge. It was never about 60 years. It was about a civilization being told that it had no place among the stars, when the truth was that someone had been afraid to let it remember that it already had one. Ward opened the final channel. Her voice crossed the galaxy. "You abandoned Earth, but you made one mistake." She looked toward the opening beyond the veil. "You thought we needed you to tell us who we were." The door opened completely. Light flooded the chamber. Ward smiled. "We remembered. Subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so you will never miss any SciFi stories like this." The end.